Welcome to the Engaged by Design podcast, where we drive innovation and help you as a leader engage more learners more effectively. I'm Dr. Vernon Smith, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Michael Cottom.
Hey, Vernon. Great to be with you on the podcast again today. Time for another amazing guest. All right, on the Engaged by Design podcast today, we have another one of my favorite people. We have Dr. Kimberly Jacobs here with us today. And Kim is a seasoned higher ed leader, and often I would call her a pioneer in online education because she was in early, around the time that me and Vernon were in, which just means we're very experienced. We've seen all of the messes, and we've created some really fun things. Kim most recently served as the Dean of the Center for Teaching and Learning at American Public University System, and that's where she led institution-wide faculty development, advanced evidence-based teaching practices, and she strengthened the university's culture of learning and innovation. That is also where I got to meet and work with Kim for several years, and I came to really admire her expertise in online learning, her ability to coach and develop faculty and leaders. And I am just really excited to be able to talk with Kim today. So Kim, in your semi-retired state, what have you been up to these days? Let's catch up.
Well, being semi-retired gives me the opportunity to spend some time working on the house and in the yard, things that have been neglected in the last, 10-ish years.
Wow.
So that's been a lot of fun to be able to kind of get my hands dirty. I've been in the garden. I'm learning about the invasive species in our community. I want to return to a more natural state of my garden to support the insects, the birds, and the critters.
It sounds like hard work, Kim.
It is hard work. It is hard work, but it's great to learn something entirely new, something that I really didn't have any prior knowledge about. So I have continued my own learning since retiring, and I've appreciated it. I've appreciated what I'm coming to understand and how complex it is. This is not a field that you can master overnight. So I'm constantly listening and reading and being out and figuring things out. So it takes a lot of time.
You have your own Center for Teaching and Learning in the backyard in the dirt, I guess.
I do. I have a biologist, a son who's a biologist, and and really he's fascinated with insects and the botany and whatnot. And so I'm routinely reaching out to him to ask for his advice or knowledge on something or to kind of confirm my own understanding. So that's opened up opportunities.
Isn't that fun to learn from your kids?
It is.
Other than patience, I mean.
Well, patience and getting gray hairs. So, Kim, you are, what do we say, an estate manager? And is that what you do? You're over
I heard
the estate?
major domo was the word.
Major domo, that's right. Major domo of an estate.
That is the phrase I've been using. Yes, I am in fact doing those things, and in truth, I've really enjoyed it. Getting back to being part of the family. I seem to have let that slide while I let a career take off. So it's been fun to get back and being involved and being responsible for those activities that I had I really had let them slide, truthfully.
Well, Kim, let's talk about your career a little bit and why you were so busy doing that. I know that you're a certified professional coach with Clifton Strengths, and that you do because you've built coaching and mentoring programs at the CTL.
She taught me a lot while I was there. She really did.
Well, one of the things I have with Kim is, Kim, what was your number at American Public University System? What faculty number were you?
Oh, there's a fun one.
What faculty number were you?
My faculty number was 188. And at the time that I left the institution, I was one of 5 remaining faculty members at the institution.
But you still teach there
Wow.
on occasion,
I
right?
still teach. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's point of that. When I served the provost there, one of the things that was really helpful is if I needed historical context, if I needed background, if I needed to know where the bodies were buried, Kim was the person that was able to help with that and just really put things into real perspective. And Kim's very diplomatic. And so it was always very nice. And then I'd start asking what about this? What about this? What about this? But Kim had the answers. And that's a wonderful thing. So let's talk about, so you started as faculty and then you moved into,
I moved into being at the time, it was a program director position. So I started, interestingly enough, little history here. I actually started as a consultant. That was how the part-time
Oh,
faculty
yeah.
were hired back at that time. We're talking 30 years ago. And the um, what was interesting about all of that is at that time, I was hired to actually write general education English courses. The institution then had graduate programs. They had a few bachelor programs, but the bachelor program expectation was that students were coming in with associate's degrees. And so they were in the process. I was hired as part of the cadre of folks that were hired to write general education so that the university could offer programs from the very beginning through to completion. And so I wrote probably a handful worth of gen ed English and literature courses then. And I did that until I became full-time in 2002. And I only did that for a few years before I was offered to become a program director. And I have served in a program director's position, both for the field of education as well as in the English department. And in that journey, I also ended up picking up general education as a responsibility before moving into the Center for Teaching and Learning. So it was the last 10 years of my career at the institution that I was heavily involved and or leading the CTL as a whole. And so it's been a lot of fun to be able to draw on those years of experience, the early parts of my time at the institution. But deep down, I am an educator at heart, and that's what I went to college for initially, is to be an educator. So all of that methodology that I learned to be a high school teacher really came into play in a lot of my decision making, and it dovetailed really well with adult learning theory and then just online design as a part of that.
as a little girl, I understand you were also already working on your teaching credentials and your teaching role. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I have a younger brother, and my poor brother was among the children that I would teach in my bedroom and with the stuffed animals. And the story is that my parents could hear me say, "Now, children," as I was talking to my brother and whoever else was made up as pupils in my class. So it's been with me forever.
Was your mom a teacher or was anybody else a teacher or you just picked
No,
this up from
it was just
who was
me.
born
But
in?
that's a great question because no, my mother she was not a teacher. Although later in her career, she did get involved in the school system, but she just always had that natural way of working with children. She still does. She just has this way of communicating and getting to their level, to be able to pull out what they need to hear, what they need to be able to do. And she did the same thing with us as children. And so it is a natural fit in that way.
How fun. And from there, sometimes you describe it as falling into this online learning space. How did that happen? How'd you fall into this?
So I got my master's degree, and I was expecting our first child while I was doing my master's. And we had planned I was going to stay home and I was going to raise our children. Both of us came from households where our mothers were available and at home with us. And so it was important to us to be able to do that. But I had been home a year with our son. And there was one evening, my husband had come home from work, and I said, I need to go to Target tonight. And he's like, okay. And I left. I drove to Target, days when we only had one vehicle. So, I wasn't going anywhere when he was at work. So I drove to Target, and I must have walked around Target at a snail's pace, because by the time I got home, my husband said, did you go to another state to go to Target?
Which you can do in the DC,
in
Maryland,
the
Virginia
DMV
area.
area. Yeah. His exact words were, did you go to Pennsylvania to go to Target? And I said, I looked him in the eye and I said, I think it's time for me to go back to work. And he says, it's on your schedule. And so that very weekend, I went out, got the Sunday paper. This is how long it's been since I had job searched. Went out, got the Sunday paper, laid it out on the living room floor, and just started going through it. And there was an advertisement for American Military University, and you had to mail in your resume and your cover letter. And I did all of that and got the call and was, did the interview. Interview was in a coffee shop, casually over a meal. And I very clearly remember the interview. I was in my late 20s. And this gentleman, who was what our age is now, says to me,
Very young, spry, energetic. Yeah.
He says to me, I've enjoyed the conversation. He says, there's no question I want to hire you. He says, but we are a new institution. We are legitimate, but there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know from one day to the next if we'll continue. We were not regionally accredited. The institution was not regionally accredited at that time. And he says to me, he goes, you really should go home and talk to your husband about this. Again, evidence of the time frame. And I was completely energized. It was an understanding that I would write the courses without compensation. I had 3 or 4 months to put these courses together. This was March, and I was going to be teaching in September. And I never looked back. Never looked back. So having the opportunity to work for AMU, which later became APU and APUS, really, it's been a godsend. I'm grateful for the opportunity that it afforded me. But to be frank, I was shocked that I even entered into higher education to begin with.
Yeah.
So, that I didn't see it coming. It's not anything I had planned to do. I didn't even think it was even within my scope of capability. It just wasn't even something that was on the horizon. And so I had my first taste of that in a small community college in Northern New York. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with working with the adults, and it's the best of both worlds in terms of high school, and because I was supposed to be a high school English teacher. And it's the best of both worlds because teaching freshman composition, first of all, students hate it, right? I mean, it
required gen ed. Yes.
But at that point, of course, this was all face-to-face then. At that point, the students were there for a reason, and they were motivated, but they needed those little lessons that come from having that methodology background. And so that's what I leaned into when I was teaching then. I drew on all of that classroom management, all of the skills and strategies that you needed to be able to manage a class and teach the lessons and prepare your, in essence, lectures. And the activities and the assignments and choose the books, all of that material. And I just
loved it. So I have a
loved
question. Did you say, now children?
No. I I had students in those community college classes that had been my father's classmates in a teeny tiny little town school when he was growing
Wow.
up. And I had high school classmates that were in my class that I
Yeah.
was teaching. And I even had the opportunity as part of that experience to actually go teach on an Army base. There's an Army post there in this area. And so I got to do that as part of that experience as well, which I think helped kind of prepare me for what I ended up doing working with military students at APUS.
It's the superhero origin story, Vernon. We just got to hear it.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
And Kim, now you sort of come full circle, right? You're back in the community, right? Talk about that.
I am. So shortly after I left the university full time, I found out in our community, the Rotary Club in the county, this is in Shenandoah County, Virginia.
Go Rotarians. I'll just say
Yes.
that. Go Rotarians.
The three the towns in the county have Rotary clubs, and they, one of the presidents came to the school system, the school district, and really broached the subject of a literacy program. We do have literacy concerns in our community. We are in a pretty rural area, and it was an opportunity to do this partnership. Clearly, the youngsters need more one-on-one time or more tutor time to support their literacy, their reading graphs, writing graphs. And so this is all based on research in the K-3 environment and all the literacy testing that takes place in that area. And they just put out a call in the local newspaper for volunteers to go into the schools and be literacy tutors. And so I answered that advertisement in the newspaper. It wasn't even an ad. It truly was an article kind of explaining what was happening and what, not so much the details, but why there was a basic desire to do this. And I had been leaving full-time work. I had been kind of playing with just different ideas about what I would want to do. I knew that I wanted to volunteer. I needed to stay active, and until I kind of figured out if I wanted to go back to work full-time or not. And so I got involved, and I am, for the last 4 months, I have been a first grade literacy volunteer. I go in each week. I work with, in my particular classroom, the teachers had me work one-on-one and in small groups. I work with an average of 12 to 16 kids every week that I go in. And we've been working on phonics, which is just my heart and soul. I love phonics, as crazy as that sounds. It was how I learned to read. So I was all over that. But they are such a joy. The kids are so much fun. They're enthusiastic. They don't really know who I am, but they know they get one-on-one time. And when I walk through the door, I have 3 or 4 little ones, different each week, will run up to me and say, "Can I read with you today?" And I always have to tell them their teacher has a plan. But they're so receptive. They're so much fun. They have so much energy. And I love just being able to have those conversations with them and bolster their confidence, reinforce what they're doing, but also listen if they're not feeling it. So, every week there's one child, and it's different every week. One child, they're a little sleepy, or they're not feeling well, or they've got fingers wrapped or something, they're just not on their game. And so an opportunity to kind of give them a high five or a little fist bump for doing a good job and keeping them focused. It's been so rewarding. And I've loved being back in the community. Again, something that I really haven't done. I volunteered when the kids were young. I did that in their schools, but at the time my work gave me the time, what I was doing for the institution, I had the time to be able to go and spend time in the class and do that tutoring then. But I haven't been involved in the community at all in the last 10 years. And so it's been fun, and I'm getting to know people. And as a result, because of my inability to keep
Say no?
questions to myself.
Oh, yes. Question yourself. That's exactly right.
Oh, that does sound familiar.
Yes, yes.
Wish
So
Kim always has questions.
I did. So I ran into the president of this project and president of the Rotary Club. I ran into him one day that I was at the school, and I said, "Oh, by the way, I'm kind of curious to know, is there a research study going on as part of this project? Because the group has done the representatives from the school. They've produced this. They've done their research. They've produced the data. They're following the literacy rates and the test scores within the county. They have all this information." And he says, "Well, we're getting articles out in the newspaper, kind of spreading the word." I said, "Yes, I understand that. But, it just looks to me like you're really building a nice foundation for a research study and sharing this information out in, literacy or reading journals across the country to potentially inform other areas and other elementary school areas of this type of a project." And he looks at me and he's thinking silently. And I thought, uh-oh,
You did it.
I don't know where this is going. And he says, "That's a really good question." He says, I actually don't know if we're going to do a research study. We're just in the pilot phase right now. And of course, again, little bells going off, like, you're using the right language. And so he called me a day later. I didn't even make it 24 hours. And he says, "There's a leadership meeting in 2 days. Why don't you join us? Because while I don't want to put this topic on the agenda, it might just naturally produce a conversation. And I think it'd be great for you to be there." And so I went. And I was immediately impressed with the wide representation from the community on this leadership team. This leadership team is about a dozen people. And so there are Rotarians, there are school representatives, there are volunteers who either have experience in building literacy programs in other areas, or they just have a natural talent or interest in general. And so the wide range of voices, those who have the financial literacy to be able to talk about it's intended to be a nonprofit type of an approach, and et cetera. And so I sat very quietly. I did not ask any questions in that leadership meeting. And before I know it, again, 24 hours after that meeting, the president calls me again. And he says, "So what'd you think?" I kind of shared my perspective, which of course was all positive. And I truly was impressed because, again, my experience has been in this highly professional higher education environment where you do have lots of voices at a table. You have that input, you have those perspectives, you have that knowledge, those skills, just those different personality traits that really impact a high performing quality team. And so I was kind of sharing that perspective. And he said, "So would you like to be on the leadership team?"
Did you not know that was coming, Kim?
Oh, I was
wondering.
trying to keep a low profile and it didn't work. Didn't work. So I was unanimously invited onto the team, voted onto the team
Nice.
at last month's meeting. And I really am excited about it. I can kind of set some boundaries. I hate to use the word busy, but I am highly involved in things that are happening around my home and members of my family. So I do want to kind of protect my newfound freedom as being semi-retired, but I'm enjoying it. I really am enjoying it. And I'm thrilled to be able to provide a perspective that kind of brings it full circle from a higher education perspective, where these youngsters hopefully will get to at some point in their futures, and to support the community and the county and know that we're making a difference. And we're very excited because the test score data will be coming out in the next few weeks. And
I was going to ask you what your impacts were.
What's your baseline? You got to establish your baseline.
Yeah. So they are, they know already just from anecdotal data conversations. And they are right now, just this week, gathering the survey data from not only the volunteers, but from the teachers who have been participating in this program. And they know without a doubt that it is helping the youngsters. Now, if we make as big of an impact on those test scores, that's yet to be determined.
Yeah.
But it is a genuine concern to know that these youngsters coming in at kindergarten and where they need to be by the end of third grade, it's a really big deal. As part of all of this, the school system put together training for the volunteers, and of course, it warmed my heart having come from the training realm and listening to, again, them painting a story and how to kind of get the training and bring everybody together and really shape the way the volunteers are to be behaving in the public school environment, right? Don't touch the kids and all of the rules that are now in place in a public school system. One of the pieces of information that they shared at the training was that so much of community planning can actually be traced back to third grade performance test scores. And so when they're
the research, isn't it? There's a huge body of research around that.
Huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really fascinating to know that so many things about just adult satisfaction, job satisfaction, general happiness, preparedness, being able to even stay out of jail, and even prison. My understanding is that even prison needs are somewhat based on third grade reading scores. And so to see how that moment in time is so important to a person's future and to a community's future, that really resonated with me. So I am thrilled just to be participating in this particular project.
It just sounds like it goes with your passion for, I mean, you are doing this in the community college and at the university level, but working with the beginners, the people who really need the help. It sounds like a new audience, but it's kind of a theme for you. You just have this drive and compassion and passion for teaching.
Yeah, it is so much fun, and I really look forward to it. I look forward to going in every week. School is about to end here in a couple of weeks, and so there's a little bit of chaos. In fact, this is kind of test week for the kiddos, so that they're doing some of that work. But yes, it's just been a joy, and to see where these youngsters are supposed to go in the future, and knowing what I know from higher education, knowing where adults who do come back to who come back to college, that's kind of the other piece of all this for me. That's the body of students that I like to work with. They are the ones that have come to school either for the first time or they're coming back to school. It's not the graduate school. It's not graduate students. It's not upper division students. And I have met lots of people. That's where they love to be, and that's great. But I like this type of student. I like the one that they may or may not want to be there. So when I say they want to be there, I certainly understand that that's not an entirely true statement. But they've made the commitment. They've taken that leap of faith. They've shown up, and they're there to learn, and they're ready to absorb what they need to be successful. And that's the student that I like working with. I like having those conversations and the moments when you can have those light bulb moments, those aha moments for them. And so at this point, I guess what I've kind of come to understand in just a short period of time is it really didn't matter if it was the adults. I enjoy those moments with the youngsters as well. So any time during that journey has been, it's what moves me. It's what's deep in my soul and my heart, and it's where I find the most joy when I'm working in education as a whole.
I love that. I like to say, you've probably heard me say this sometimes, but we are so blessed, fortunate, lucky, whatever, great term we want to use, that we help transform people's lives, starting with littles all the way up to adults. And it's transformative. And you can't say that about every job or every profession, but in education, that is certainly the truth. And the real root of it, it goes right to your heart, it sounds like, that you're able to transform people's lives.
Yeah. It's those single moments. And what's really interesting is as a teacher, as a classroom teacher, whether it's online in the classroom or it's face-to-face, what I have always appreciated, and it has always happened, to clarify, I have never taught a class in which this did not happen. That is, at least one person, often more, but at least one person kind of made that had that turning point, had that transformation happen, came back to me to say, wow, I get it. I understand. Thank you. You explained it in a way that I got it. I'm so much more excited about X, Y, or Z, whatever it might be, whether it's their discipline or whether it's their career, or whether it's their personal life, or in this case, reading. Every single time I have had at least one person come back and say, thank you, this is what I got out of that. And that has always been enough for me, even if it's that one student. Like I said, it's usually more than that, but yeah, that's the piece that I've always leaned on. Kept me motivated.
It goes to show that even if you have a group or a large group or a lecture hall, it's still one person.
It is still one person.
It's still one person who is learning from one other person, or from a group maybe, but it's the difference you make in one life.
Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us on the Engaged by Design podcast for part 1 of this conversation with Dr. Kimberly Jacobs. Come back next episode to hear a little bit more from Kim about the things that she has learned from leading faculty in an era of change in higher education.
Thank you for joining our conversation. Be sure to like, subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with a friend. And let us know how the ideas from the podcast have helped you as you have engaged by design.